Hey everyone, it's Jeannie here for Not Too Shabby. I hope you're doing well. Today I'm creating a scene card using the stamp set Me Time, which is part of the Not Too Shabby April Lazy Time box. I decided to create a scene card of the girl in the headphones in the living room, and I had created masks for all the images that I will be using for today's card using Eclipse masking paper. By having those masks, I can use them to set up my scene so I can line up my stamps with the masks to stamp them onto my blank panel. This first panel that you see has my completed scene created by those masks, and the blank panel that I will be swapping it out with will be what I am stamping on. For masking a scene, you want to stamp the images that are at the very front if there's any overlap. For example, the book is in front of the girl, so that should be stamped first, along with any of the other items that can be stamped at the same time. So in this case, the plant, the book, the coffee cup, and the sentiment were stamped first. Once I line up the next items, which is the girl and the stack of books, I will pick them up with my MISTI, and then I will remove the template panel, remove the masks that I had already stamped off, and put them onto my main card panel, which is the card panel with all the stamped images. For this particular card, I actually only need masks for three things: the book, the girl, and the couch. I had created masks for everything because my original game plan going into this particular card was that I would be ink blending the entire background, so the living room walls and the floors. I had changed my game plan when I got further into it because I just thought that using Copic markers would be the better course of action. Normally, I prefer to ink blend because ink is just cheaper. It will cover up an entire space. And with Copic markers, if you're covering a large area, usually it gets pretty streaky, and Copic refills are kind of hard to get right now. So I am trying to conserve my colors and my refills. I have a couple of dry markers, and it's kind of driving me crazy because I can't find the refills for them. For the living room, I had drawn everything in with pencil, but omitted it from the video because the lines are just really hard to see unless you're looking really closely, and I zoomed in as much as I could. I probably could have zoomed in a little bit more, but things would be out of frame, so I decided just to show the part where I'm outlining my pencil lines with a Copic-friendly marker. And I am using an EK journaling pen, which is, I believe, discontinued. I've seen them at Joann's, but only in a certain size, which is the 0.45, and I usually use the 0.35 for outlining. So as you can tell from my scene card, I am just using lines to create them. Usually all my scene cards are just a composition of a bunch of lines. It never gets really complicated, and it works for me because it's super precise because I have a ruler. I have a little bit of a harder time being more abstract with my scene cards, so when there are lines that I can pretend were stamped images, it works better for me. The first part of the card is that I am going to ink blend and color up the living room walls. Originally, I wanted to go with an accent wall because I thought those were really fun. So I pulled out the Distress ink in Worn Lipstick because I just thought it would be a fun color to have a wall. This isn't something I normally do. I live in a house with white walls, and I don't think that the paint color will be changing anytime soon. So I thought it would just be fun to do. I do have a hard time when I use colorful colors for a house because I think about what the furniture color would be, and so today I ended up using a bunch of neutrals, and that worked out well. So I decided to ink blend the two walls in two separate masked areas because I wanted to add a little heavier ink in the corners just so it looks like I tried a little shading. For the floor, I decided that I had to go with kind of a white or light gray floor, and I decided to add lines to kind of mimic hardwood floors. And I did that because I thought that if I had solid color for the walls and the ground, there wouldn't be enough interest in the card. So by creating lines for the hardwood floors, I'm just adding a little something extra. I just went in with pencils and kind of just drew them along the lines of the floor. So some are a little slanted, some are straight, and then some kind of point to the right or the left. And it just depends on the perception. My lines are definitely not perfect, so I just went in with the ruler and hoped for the best. And I think people don't notice that unless it's really off. But I kind of followed the angles of that wall and worked my way out. With my pencil lines, I decided that I wasn't going in with my Copic friendly pen because I didn't want it to look super harsh. I wanted a softer look. I actually erased the pencil lines just so they were light enough for me to see that I could go over it with my Copic marker. And because I was going with light gray, I knew that the pencil lines would be hidden by the Copic markers. I went in with the C5 at first just to add in a little bit of shadows exactly where the lines of the bottom of the floor were. And I will go in with my C3 and kind of blend everything out and actually draw the lines with the C3 marker. Then I will use my C1 and my C00 just to blend everything out. I do leave a bit of white on the floors because I want it to be a very light gray. So if you've seen my coloring before, I usually have 3 markers for each area, the darkest color to the lightest, and I am using that throughout the coloring of this card. This card is a little bit longer than my usual videos. I try to keep them under 10 minutes because it is a lot of time that you're investing in watching me color, and I don't plan on doing very long videos all the time, but I thought that this one was a really fun one to share because it creates a scene from start to finish. It includes all my masking process. And these stamps don't have coordinating dies, but you could have just created the background and then fussy cut these images and then glued them on. It would have worked the same. For me, I really like layering and I like masking and stamping, so this didn't bother me at all. But of course, if this isn't something that you like to do, you definitely can fussy cut and then just glue on your images and you won't have to worry about the different layers. But you kind of see it as it's kind of similar to masking. You, instead of focusing on the items that are at the very front, you put all the items that are behind first. So if you were using die cuts, you would put the couch first, then the girl, then the book. But if you're masking, you want to stamp the book, the girl, and then the couch. And those are really the only 3 things that ended up being masked. And here I remove everything. It's funny because I really didn't need to mask off most of these because I was Copic coloring the floor and that's where most of the items were. But I went ahead and kept the mask anyway, just so I didn't get my Copic markers on the images while I was coloring the floor. So because this video is longer, I have a little more time to chat. I know that a lot of people like these scene cards. If you don't, I'm sorry, but if you do, let me know if you want to see more. These do take a little bit more time, and sometimes I feel with the longer videos, it's harder for me because I just don't have anything to chat about. I'm going to follow in the spirit of this actual card and the girl who is reading. So lately I have been trying to get myself back into reading books. I used to be this huge bookworm when I was younger and read a ton. And usually throughout the year when I am commuting, I'm usually on a bus and I can actually read a library book or on my phone. And this year, or this past year, I haven't been able to do that because I haven't been commuting, which is nice because you have that extra time to do other things. But I really wanted to get back into reading. And one way that I was trying to incorporate that is because I am going on walks these days. So in the afternoon, I will stop work around 3 or so and go on a walk around Golden Gate Park. And I usually end up walking about 3 to 4 miles, and that takes about 1.5 to 2 hours. So I usually listen to music, but recently I've been listening to audiobooks. My first audiobook that I actually was listening to was Michelle Obama's Becoming. And then my most recent one is Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights. I really enjoyed his because his voice is so engaging. I grew up with rom-coms that he was in, such as How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and Wedding Planner. So I really like him, and I like him in general. He's just an engaging person, and I really like his voice. I've realized while looking for different audiobooks, I'm very particular with a person's voice who's reading. So if I don't like their voice, I have a really hard time paying attention and focusing. So I've gone through a few books where I just really am interested in the book itself, but the person who reads it isn't reading it in a way that is engaging, or I don't like their voice. And I feel really bad about that, but I don't know if that's just me. If you feel the same, let me know. But I really liked Matthew McConaughey's. He just is talking about his life, so I guess that also plays a role in it because he's animated in that sense because he lived his life and he wants to share his story. If you guys have any books that you would like to recommend, either on audiobook or just to read, I am open to hearing about it because I just haven't fallen in love with any particular series. I actually wanted to start the Bridgerton series because it has come out on Netflix as a series and everyone loved it. And so I still haven't watched Bridgerton because I wanted to read the books first. And I'm having a hard time actually finding time to sit and just read. I feel like I'm always one of those people that like to multitask. Like I have to be doing multiple things at the same time. While I'm doing this voiceover, I'm also watching a movie. So it's one of those things where while I'm working, I'm also watching the TV show or I'm listening to music. Like there's always things that I have to be doing at the same time. When I was commuting, I was also reading a book or listening to a podcast. And now it's really hard for me just to do one thing. And even when I go on my walks, I need to be doing something else. I need to be listening to music, listening to a book. So if you have any recommendations, I'm totally open to it. I actually have this thing where I love reading books before I watch the show or movie. I tried listening to Little Fires Everywhere, and that one was honestly very hard for me. The voice for the audiobook was fine. It was only a bit annoying, but I was very interested in the book itself. So I kind of stuck it out. I ended up watching the series and really loving it, but I think I would have loved it more if I just read it physically from a book instead of listening to the audiobook. So I've been kind of listening to biographies instead because I feel I don't have to pay as much attention. If I miss something, it's usually just a little tidbit of their life, and I'm okay with that. Whereas with a book, you kind of have to pay attention because if you miss something important, it might throw you off for the entire book. So with Little Fires Everywhere, I found myself having to rewind often, and that wasn't that great because I would just zone out and then I would have to rewind and listen to the same thing over again. I'm open to suggestions for anything. I just feel like there hasn't really been a book trend. I remember when Twilight was a big thing, 50 Shades of Grey, Hunger Games, but there hasn't been a series or a book series that has been really popular. I feel like lately everything has been either, oh, a new Netflix series is out, or this HBO movie is out, or like the Marvel episodes are out. Apologies for my long ramble to ask for audiobook or book recommendations, but extra points if you have a suggestion that is a book that was made into a movie, not a movie made into a book. Usually I like to compare the two, whether the book is better than the movie or the movie is better than book, and usually the book is better than the movie always. Leave your suggestions down below, but let's talk about this card for a bit. So most of my coloring was really basic. I just picked colors that I normally use, and I pulled in the same colors throughout the card into the stack of books because I do like using the same colors throughout a card so it looks cohesive. And the couch, I don't know how I feel about the color. I just really didn't know what to do with it, and I didn't want to color like a black couch, so I went with brown. I am just a terrible interior decorator, so this probably doesn't help that I had to create a scene card with furniture, but I think that this card ended up looking pretty okay, and maybe I can work in some way where I can kind of have removable pieces for a card in case I change my mind. I actually have been toying with an idea of a magnetic card. If you guys are interested in that, maybe I'll focus my attention on creating that. But yeah, that is it for this card. I think it came out pretty cute for a scene card. I know there are similar scene cards done by the design team, for this particular set, but I don't know how else you can help it. This is just perfect for a scene card. So I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you have a great day. Bye!